Greetings! Today I wish to focus on energetic levels explained by Dr. David R. Hawkins in his book Power vs. Force, and dive a bit deeper into how these energies work on the positive polarity, or in their shadow version on the negative polarity. We'll focus especially on the emotions of desire, anger, and pride, since these three often end up being misunderstood due to their shadow version, when they're actually very relevant towards achieving more harmonious states of being, as they are connected to the development of a strong sense of self. As Astrological explains, there are two polarities across the universe: the positive, service to others, and the negative, service to self. And the selection of a chosen path is one of the most important tasks towards accessing higher density, since life on the fourth density and above requires either a vibrant heart chakra or a deactivated one. The center of heart, or green ray, is the center from which third density beings may springboard, shall we say, towards infinite intelligence. Blockages in this area may manifest as difficulties in expressing what you may call universal love or compassion. Some love the light, some love the darkness. It is a matter of the unique and infinitely various Creator choosing and playing among its experiences as a child upon a picnic. Some enjoy the picnic and find the sun beautiful, the food delicious, the games refreshing, and glow with the joy of creation. Some find the night delicious, their picnic being pain, difficulty, suffering of others, and the examination of the perversities of nature. These enjoy a different picnic. The universe itself does have a preference for the positive polarity. Not only is it far more popular among beings as a chosen path, but the fact that this choice among polarities even exists makes the universe itself on the side of free will, which is one of the main aspects of the positive polarity. So, how can desire, anger, and pride possibly be good emotions for us? Because they are side effects or byproducts of a strong sense of self in the making. Below them, below fear, we are in too much chaos to develop and experience a healthy self, and courage, above them, is a bravery to allow ourselves to be who we wish to be, to create a lifestyle we truly wish to experience. This is the basis of divine masculine energy, and I do recommend checking out the video I made on that topic, along with the divine feminine one. But isn't a strong sense of self the ego? Not at all. The ego is a weak and frail sense of self, because ego is what occurs when we try to attach our essence purely on external things, including mental activity. While a strong sense of self is born when you focus within, deeper and deeper into the soul. The external world is a manifestation, a mirror of our inner world. We attract realities, people, and things that match our vibration and state of being. So, if we focus far too much on the external, which is an ever-changing illusion, we become more and more powerless and more forceful. Let's actually start by looking at the negative polarity, just to have a clear picture that desire is not envy, anger is not wrath, and pride is not narcissism. They can be, but there are other factors that lead to these emotions becoming their shadow selves. When we focus far too much on the external, we enter a constant state of chaos and powerlessness, emotionally, physically, and mentally, chasing anything that brings us pleasure and a little taste of relief, even if it's very flimsy since it's coming from external sources. True inner peace comes from a connection to the soul. But the deeper we fall into an egoistic state of being, the more disconnected we become from the soul, and the more attached we become to the mind. However, the biggest irony is that the mind at this point enters a state of chaos, and with far too much activity, worries, as well as negative thoughts, goes out of control, to the point that it starts to lose what it was designed to do: logic, facts, creativity, analysis, constructive thinking, and so on. It slowly begins to work mostly from memory and repetition, but not necessarily based on the ability to connect different things together. It's at this point that we begin to enter a state of mindlessness, which is the opposite of mindfulness. It's when we exist mostly in autopilot, when the past dominates, and when we behave much like automatons without knowing it, when rules and routines govern rather than guide what we do. The deeper anyone falls into this state, the more they start to follow without critical thinking what the perceived authorities of their outside world tell them as true, the same way they are completely hypnotized by their ego, which rules them with an iron fist. Because again, they lack a healthy sense of self. They are in an internal state of chaos as well as powerlessness, being shaped and programmed by outside influences. Slowly entering what is best known as Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity, which I will leave in the description as reference 1. Against stupidity, we have no defense. Neither protest nor force can touch it. Reasoning is of no use. Facts that contradict personal prejudices can simply be disbelieved. Indeed, the fool can counter by criticizing them, and if they are undeniable, they can just be pushed aside as trivial exceptions. So the fool, as distinct from the scoundrel, is completely self-satisfied. In fact, they can easily become dangerous, as it does not take much to make them aggressive. In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with him as a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. He is under a spell, blinded, misused, and abused in his every being. Having thus become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil, and at the same time incapable of seeing that it is evil. This is the stage when people have begun to test drive the negative polarity, since they may not be malicious at heart, but their lack of empathy and recklessness puts those around them at risk, and their actions start to regularly go against the well-being of themselves, their loved ones, and society in general. But, at least in comparison, this is by far the most redeemable stage of the negative polarity, as long as they actively choose to seek healing over ego. If they continue to choose ego, over time they lose their ability to be happy for others, as misery loves company and hurt people. So they enter a constant state of envy, wrath, and narcissism. A form of pride now identified as dangerously corrupt selfishness that puts one's desires, urges, wants, and whims before the welfare of other people. The belief that one is essentially better, superior, or more important than others, while also seeking excessive admiration and attention. Narcissism is not, in any way, shape, or form, an excessive form of self-love, self-esteem, self-respect, or any self-starting word that requires regular self-awareness. It's fully focused on the external. Best way I can describe it is as pride over being able to control, manipulate, and shape what is around them for their ego's benefit and nobody else's. Also, this is a stage when their actions begin to develop predatory patterns. For example, due to a lack of self, they now mirror those around them or become what they wish to see, no different than actors on a movie. Often developing connections only for supply, be it financial, emotional, or simply to learn the person's facial expressions, tone of voice, gestures, speech patterns, likes and dislikes, all as a way to develop a fake self that blends well in the social circles they aim for, while hiding their true, dark selves. And don't get me wrong, we are very social beings. We easily influence each other. Hence the saying that we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. But the deeper they fall into sociopathy, the more it feels like a black hole putting on a mask of a normal person. The video that I suggest as reference 2 regarding letting go of fixing people will explain this as well. As they dive deeper into the negative polarity, into psychopathy, be it in one lifetime or in several incarnations, they stop being in such a state of internal chaos. I wouldn't call it harmony, they're just more in control of themselves, their actions and emotions. They officially lose their conscience and are disconnected from their souls. Also, as a shadow side of love, they learn to hate but also enjoy their path. If they continue even further, instead of envying others, they aim higher and begin to envy God, aspiring to become what they perceive to be one. In order to become aware of how they think and perceive the world in a practical way, I'll leave an abridged version of the book 48 Laws of Power as reference 3. Be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves is indeed timeless good advice for every empath. And now back to the positive polarity, a topic that is far more comfortable, at least for me. An empath is a term that relates to anyone exploring the positive polarity, as it depicts a person connected not only to the body and mind, but also the soul. Even when experiencing the denser energy, the other realms of the body and the mind, the connection to the soul, the emotional body, is faded but well active, unlike the negative polarity, which is a shadow version of all these energies due to the gradual lack of soul, slowly becoming a heartless way of living. That said, as empaths, we can also be dark, harsh, guarded, selfish, cowardly, arrogant, conceited, lazy, competitive, stubborn, avoidant, judgmental, codependent, eccentric, foolish, naive, anxious, especially anxious, and so on, regardless of our baseline vibrational level, even on the harmonious ones, as these include higher levels of self-awareness and the need for shadow work, leading both our light and shadow aspects to find ways to grow and work together. If I had to distinguish both polarities at their root, I would say the positive polarity is about connection and integration, gradually embracing all that we are, further and further, until we turn to a state where we realize we are one with everything across creation. The path of service to others has nothing to do with being subservient. It's all about cultivating inner sovereignty and enlightenment. It's a slow process of balancing unconditional love with wisdom, kindness with strength, divine feminine with divine masculine energies. While the negative polarity deals with disconnection and illusion, even fear means false evidence appearing real. It's all about suppressing, disowning, contracting, rejecting, and trying to erase parts of our being, including eventually our humanity, as far as it can go. But at the end of the day, true disconnection from reality is not possible. Energy can't be destroyed. For example, we may reject a part of ourselves, but either that energy is transmuted or it just stays subconsciously stagnant and stuck until it has a chance to rise back up again. To keep it even simpler, one is the path of embracing everything as sentient, everyone as deserving of rights and respect. The other, the path of gradually dehumanizing and seeing everything and everyone as an inanimate tool to be used. Hence this video focusing on embracing desire, anger, and pride, along with the other denser energies as relevant and essential building blocks of our development, and not problems that need to be locked away for the sake of spiritual growth. Quite the opposite. Granted, we can all agree that desire, anger, and pride taken way too far are toxic ways of being. But by disowning them, we are leaving behind precious parts of our consciousness, causing them to stay in our subconscious self in a frozen state of being. For example, by disowning anger, we lock a part of our consciousness away in a perpetual state of anger. And since, as above as below, we now attract people and reasons for us to get angry at as a way to release this fragment of consciousness from its prison. In other words, our conscious mind might be here at around willingness, and other subconscious parts of us might be locked away in past memories of fear, desire, grief, guilt, shame, even within the shadow side of any emotion. Sometimes even the high vibrational energies can be suppressed. The fragments lying deeper into our subconscious will be the hardest ones to connect with, and we might not even be aware of their existence. All of this is a perfectly normal part of the human experience and healing journey for any of us. When our connection between body, mind, and soul is healthy, in other words, when our physical self is connected to our higher self, bringing these dense energies into our awareness will allow them to transmute and gain new forms, without having to lose their core meaning. Pride, now in the presence of gratitude, becomes a form of appreciation for who we are and our personal achievements. It becomes self-esteem, our sense of personal worth and value, which doesn't neglect in any way feeling gratitude for everything and everyone around us. Anger, when tempered with patience, is now a signal that something is very important to us, something worth fighting for. But now the physical self no longer feels a lack of options. It knows that what triggered the anger is far from being the only option to get what we need or do what needs to be done. We now know the higher self will guide us to the best path for resolution, so we calm down, back away, and analyze the situation. It's when the physical mind is blinded to believe that something can only be handled one way, the hard way, that anger can truly become out of hand. While desire, now in the presence of temperance, still indicates the need for growth and expansion, but feeling satisfied and focused. Ideally, it will be in tune with our soul's calling, guiding us to a sense of purpose, away from overindulgence and an excessive love of pleasure. For more practical examples, I'll now focus a bit on astrology, more specifically on the signs of Libra, Aries, and Leo, as these 3 out of the 6 masculine signs are the ones that deal with the topics of desire, anger, and pride, respectively. Aries and Libra happen to be opposite signs, which is always a fascinating topic to study. Every sign represents an aspect of life that is crucial for our growth, and, from a practical point of view, finding a balance between each of the opposite signs will aid us in achieving a newfound state of harmony, as they are 2 sides of the same coin. They may seem as night and day at first sight, but both these signs in their own special way deal with the topic of relationships. Aries is a sign that focuses on our relationship with our own self-concept, our identity, while Libra is the sign dealing with our relationships with others and our social self. It's no coincidence that the house of Aries, our self-image, is the first house of our birth chart, since our reality is highly generated by our self-concept, our core beliefs, and thoughts about who we are. In fact, the easiest way to shift realities is to change the way we view ourselves. Aries energy teaches us the development of a strong sense of self, self-reliance, independence, genuine honesty, the ability to take action, and above all, being in the now, the present moment. Out of all signs, Aries is the least likely to be lost in thoughts of the past or the future. It's all about living now, doing things now, feeling our emotions now, which is a true reason as to why energies like anger can be so common for this sign. Mars embraces and handles these intense feelings as they emerge through discipline, or mishandles them, becoming blinded and consumed by them. Which is why patience is the key to manage Aries energy. On one hand, it's great that Aries brings us the ability to handle things during the heat of the moment, as there will always be occasions when we need to act immediately with our gut intuition. But on the other hand, more often than not, most situations require us to respond instead of react, calm down, sleep on it, and reach a careful solution, which is when Libra, the other side of the coin, comes in handy. If Aries is the energy of I am, Libra is the energy of I balance. In other words, Libra is the art of balancing what we are with what we perceive not to be, including what we desire. The core essence of this emotion is the urge of bringing into our I am something that we either perceive to have lost or to have never had, and now wish to have. Hence Libra, the air sign ruled by Venus, being the energy that relates to diplomacy, marriage, justice, business partnerships, contracts, and interpersonal relationships. At its best, Libra deals with relationships and transactions that are mutually fair and conducive, considering the needs and wants of all parties involved. This is a sign that seeks peace, common ground, harmony, and equality, but when taken too far, can lead to self-sacrifice, an overly compromising and conciliatory nature, people-pleasing behavior, too much forbearance, and the need to fix people. Once again, I recommend video reference number 2. With both energies balanced, Aries and Libra, we gain a sense of self that embraces what is commonly known as the level up journey. We merge inner strength with elegance and refined social skills, accepting that as we continue onward on our growth and healing, it's natural to raise our standards and no longer be a compatible match with everything and everyone. We learn to develop a diplomatic assertiveness that is fully comfortable with maintaining healthy boundaries and letting go of what is prejudicial to our healing, without guilt or shame, because we do so from a point of view of discernment instead of judgment. We learn to value the art of communication, be it to initiate, maintain, manage, rebuild, or end relationships. To dive deeper into this topic, I'll leave as reference for the summary of the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Tawwab. It's also important to consider that as the physical self learns to develop a collaboration with a higher self, more commonly known as using the law of attraction, anger and desire begin to trigger us less and less. As we feel guided, abundant, and we are now aware that there are infinite paths to reach what we aim for. At this point, we no longer feel a sense of lack or powerlessness, and therefore these two emotions begin to lose the weight they once had upon us. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. These emotions and these aspects of our consciousness, in their own special way, may have kept us safe and aided in getting us this far. Now they can grow with us and learn new forms of expressing themselves. As Albert Einstein once said, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. The same applies to pride. Using Leo now as an example, this sign deals with our sense of gratitude for our personal achievements and our need to feel fulfilled, successful, passionate, and always on track with our sense of joy and excitement, which is actually the language of our soul and the higher self. It's no coincidence that Leo represents our inner child throughout our life, which is why this is the sign associated with children, fun, pleasure, and emotional satisfaction. We all aim to have a purposeful and meaningful life. Suppressing these aspects is the same as suppressing our soul. Pride can go sideways if sourced from the validation and approval of external sources, like other people, which will lead to an egoistic state of mind. But when it comes from us, it slowly leads to a healthy sense of self-respect, as we learn to value ourselves and our impact on the world. Both Leo and the opposite sign Aquarius focus on this topic of achievement and accomplishment. However, Aquarius represents the big picture, reaching our dreams and life goals, also our sense of purpose in society. And if we only allow ourselves to feel self-esteem and gratitude for these finish lines, for the cherry on top, we will soon starve ourselves of self-appreciation and live for a future that might never happen, at least not as we imagine it. Let's keep in mind that it's our state of being that generates reality, so to reach success, we need to feel and experience success as often as possible. Success needs to be something completely normal for us. That's why the other side of the coin, Leo, deals with fulfillment for the little everyday things that we succeed at, just as children naturally do. For example, taking pride in cooking an amazing meal for dinner. It's a delicious experience and it makes us feel good about ourselves and our skills. When both energies, Leo and Aquarius, are satisfied and balanced, we are so abundant with self-validation and fulfillment that we ironically tend to naturally gravitate towards modesty. We now live and breathe our self-fulfillment, so we don't really feel the need to draw attention to it. Our actions speak for themselves. More often than not, we will learn to plan, move, and celebrate in silence, or among those we truly trust, as these two signs also relate to our circle of friends as we grow. As we balance these energies within us, we also learn to effortlessly praise, inspire, and cheer up our loved ones. Because when we encourage ourselves on a daily basis, motivation becomes a natural part of our charisma. And before we finish, just for the sake of curiosity and completion, the remaining pair of masculine signs, Gemini and Sagittarius, both deal with the topic of knowledge. With Gemini representing what is within our comfort zone, our childhood upbringing, memories, our society, our culture, our language and beliefs, what we learn in school and at home. along with the truth-seeking Sagittarius as our growth zone, disclosing information, seeking higher forms of education, foreign cultures and languages, travel, new lifestyles, and uncharted discoveries. When both are in balance, we achieve a responsible form of personal expansion that is respectable to our roots while still branching out towards new experiences. All masculine signs do focus more on refining the skills of the physical self, our body and mind, while the remaining feminine signs bring heart, soul, and the emotional body into the mix. For the next videos, I'll focus on Uranus and the Sun, so we'll continue this topic of self-image, purpose, and achievement then, along with subliminal music to give our subconscious mind a nudge towards the right path. See you soon!